Coming up on the Angus Report, what delivers value for today's cattle feeder?
A meatpacking scandal in Brazil limits the country's beef exports.
A focus on soil health this spring can improve cattle grazing and performance.
Finding more flavor and marbling in beef products.
A look at carcass grading trends.
Then coverage from the Great Plains, where ranchers begin to recover from destructive wildfires.
This is the Angus Report. Hello and welcome to the Angus Report. I'm Crystal Albers.
And I'm Jenna McCrell.
Our top news this week. Demand for high-quality cattle that deliver value up and down the supply chain is growing in today's market environment. Investing in premium cattle that can lead to even greater grid premiums is a major selling point for cattle feeders. That's according to Billy Hall, who works for Chapel Feedlot in Nebraska. He explains what they're looking for when selecting the next pen of calves.
One of the primary goals of working with retained ownership customers and then feeding cattle myself and then company cattle is trying to identify the genetics that actually deliver the value in a very hard, volatile market. So trying to find those cattle that you buy them for a premium and then they give a premium back to you when you market them on the grid. For me, in the stuff that I look at, it's really feed conversion, performance, really health is number one. So trying to find cattle that, can gain and grade and stay healthy and yield and just do everything they have to. Because in today's environment, you just can't leave any loops not closed.
More information on targeting a high-quality end product can be found at cabpartners.com.
Brazil's meatpacking industry recently came under fire. News reports say that several Brazilian packers are accused of bribing inspectors to waive food safety requirements and allow contaminated meat to be shipped. No product has entered the United States, and the USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service has instituted additional testing of all shipments of raw beef and ready-to-eat products from Brazil.
As pastures begin to green up this spring, producers are reminded to consider soil health and management plans to keep their forages in top shape for grazing. Johnny Rogers with North Carolina State University shares considerations for improving soil and pasture management in the next growing season.
One of the things I try to get across to producers as I talk to them is I try to get them to think about not just the macro herd, the big herd of livestock they have above the ground, but also think about the micro herd, all the microorganisms that are below the soil surface that can help build better soil structure, which will help us grow better grass, which in the end will help us grow better cattle. As you're making management decisions on your farm, whether it involves grazing or use of, pour-on dewormers or a lot of things, a lot of pasture-based herbicides that can have an impact on the soil. It doesn't mean we can't use those tools, but we also need to look at the broader impact that they might have. Probably the simplest thing we can do on our farms and our pastures, if you got a pasture, doesn't matter how big it is, split it in half with a temporary fencing wire, poly wire, and that can start to give you the benefits of a rotational grazing.
A bigger beef cattle herd and a younger cow herd. In the face of declining cattle prices, these two facts can bring hope. Had it not been for the drought early in this decade, Oklahoma State University ag economist Daryl Peel says the expansion would have come sooner. The drought forced cattlemen to liquidate large portions of their herd, and when the nation's cattle inventory began to build back in 2015, it was with a large influx of heifers. That resulted in a very young herd and led to the retention of higher quality and more current genetics, allowing for more rapid production of quality cattle. Certified Angus beef cattle specialist Paul Dykstra says more cattle have qualified for CAB in the past year than any other year on record, due in part to the higher quality cattle entering the feedlots. Cattle prices will continue to be based off a basic supply and demand system. However, Dykstra says they anticipate a continued increase in volume of certified Angus beef and says consumers are willing to pay more for it. Visit angus.media to read more.
When it comes to beef quality, certain traits like tenderness are easier to quantify than others. Beef flavor is very complex and can be attributed to many different flavor notes, said Bridget Wasser, Executive Director of Meat Science for the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Research into what defines beef flavor and consumer product preferences will guide the beef business moving forward.
Beef isn't just does it taste good or does it not taste good. There's just individual flavor attributes and notes and descriptive terms that we can use that all have to kind of be turned on the right way when we heat and cook beef to get a great beef eating experience. It makes beef and studying beef flavor very complex, but it's also a great opportunity because it means that there's so many great beef flavor notes that are within our product that we can use to differentiate the product in a competitive marketplace versus other proteins and other foods that we're competing with out there.
Supporting the next generation of Angus leaders is a top mission for the Angus Foundation as it rallies support for Angus education, youth, and research. Each summer, the Angus Foundation awards more than $200,000 in undergraduate and graduate scholarships to students nationwide, contributing to their dream of higher education. National Junior Angus Board Chairman Macy Perry says the Angus Foundation plays a vital role in preparing Angus youth for a successful future.
I never really knew how important and how influential the Angus Foundation was when I was a young junior. And then, I applied for scholarships and I was fortunate enough to receive some scholarships and they really helped me a lot in school. I mean, I couldn't be going to school out of state if it wasn't for the Angus Foundation. But being elected to the board and serving on the board, it's opened my eyes a lot more to how much the Angus Foundation does and how beneficial they are to the National Junior Angus Association. And I think it's something that we're really going to try to show these juniors how important the Angus Foundation is because they give so much to the juniors. And I mean, we couldn't be in a junior association without the Angus Foundation.
Scholarship applications can be found online at angusfoundation.org and are due back May 1st.
When we return, a look at beef carcass quality and recent upward trends.
Then we visit Southwest Kansas and hear stories of hope and rebuilding after devastating wildfires.
Visit angus.media to continue watching this episode of the Angus Report.
This isn't a 9-to-5 job. So when you check the pants one last time, put away the tools, and make sure everything's ready to hand off to the night crew. It's not the clock that tells you the day is over. It's the confidence of knowing you got it right. It's having one less thing to worry about when the sun goes down. So when you see the signs of BRD, choose confidence. Choose Zuprevo from Merck Animal Health. Talk to your veterinarian about Zuprevo for BRD treatment.
Today's beef consumer has questions. BQA has the answers. Your Beef Quality Assurance certification allows you to share a story that assures customers that you are responsibly raising a safe, wholesome, and healthy beef supply. Becoming BQA certified just became even more convenient with a new interactive training experience that is online and available 24/7. So what are you waiting for? Get started today by visiting bqa.org.
We're in 3 separate locations, but we actually operated as one feed yard. The total capacity is around 45,000 cattle.
We do mostly calf fed. And using PredictGen has been a good deal for us. It's a DNA test, and we can test for marbling, yield grade, and tenderness.
When we first started with PredictGen, I'd bought some first calf heifers. We tested the heifers as well as the cows just to see how accurate it would be. The calves that came from those heifers had almost the same test scores as the cows did. So we kind of knew we were on the right track.
When we're going from ranch to rail, we want to have the best product out there.
I do think it would be an advantage to buy cattle based on this test. It's going to be exciting to watch this progress over the next 10 years.
It's unbelievable where we're going. I mean, I'm glad we started using it because there's dang sure a place for it, and it's going to get even better. Producing the best beef we can for the consumer puts more money in our pocket.
Did you know that your checkoff works to grow demand for U.S. beef in more than 80 countries? Did you know export markets add more than $250 in value to each head? Did you know your checkoff works to develop, defend, and dispel in an effort to expand international markets? While you're focused on managing your beef business, your checkoff is developing new foreign markets and defending those where U.S. beef is currently sold. Get to know your checkoff at mybeefcheckoff.com.